Hi, and welcome to Girls Lunch, your mealtime companion where we talk about food, gender, sexuality, and where everyone is welcome.
I am Julia Andreas.
I am Nicole Hilton.
Nicole, tell me, have you ever had to take a home ec class?
Yes, so we have talked about this off mic a couple of times, but I'm always happy to tell this story more broaderly. So I did not have to take home ec. It was an elective in middle school. I don't believe it was available to us in high school for some reason, which seems backwards somehow. Only available in middle school. And it was not called home economics. This is the early mid-2000s, so it was called Family and Consumer Sciences, which we kids always just abbreviated to FACS, because it's FACS. So it would always be like, oh, I've got FACS class later. And the way that they did it at our school was they changed it up depending on like what year you took it or whether you took it in like fall or spring. Each semester would have like two main topics, I think. So it was like one semester it might be like babysitting and money management. Another semester it might be like cooking and sewing. I think there might have been a couple other topics in there, but those are the four that I remember the most. And I enjoyed them all.
That makes sense to me. I went to a private school, and home ec, or Family and Consumer Sciences, was not a thing at all. I kind of thought it was like a myth, or just something that like used to happen, but it was in like all of those TV shows, right? Like Ned's Declassified.
Exactly. Of the like, is this something that just sort of exists on TV but doesn't really exist in real life, you know? Like when you have to supposedly like climb a rope in gym class, like, was that real? Did anybody ever really do that? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't think I ever had to climb a rope. I don't remember there being a rope anywhere in my gym. But yeah, kind of like that thing where I was like, this is just something that happens in high schools and things, and public school, I guess. I don't know. It was mythical to me, just like being able to wear normal clothes to school and not a uniform. What? What do you mean? But anyway, this episode will not really touch on the modern day equivalent of home ec. That will be happening in part 2. For part 1, because this will be a 2-parter because home ec is just so giant, we're focusing on like the founding of home ec up until the beginning. Like we'll stop right before World War II, of course, because that's when things get spicy. But we've mentioned home ec in actually a few of our other episodes, specifically Fanny Farmer and her as part of the domestic science movement, which is like, cooking food that was super nutritional. People got really into nutrition and finding like what's best for, having a full, nutritionally complete like set of meals.
A balanced diet?
Yes, that's the phrase.
A balanced diet.
That's the phrase. And then we've also touched on home ec a little bit with David's school lunch series. So we're not going to get too deep into either Fanny Farmer or the school lunch series because we already have episodes on those. And while I was reading like my main source of material, The Secret History of Home Economics by Danielle Dreilinger? I don't know if I'm mispronouncing your name, I'm very sorry. It was astonishing to me how many aspects of our lives and how many potentially future episodes have been touched by home ec or were like a part of the home ec movement, including but not limited to kitchens, Betty Crocker, the federal poverty level, standardized clothing sizes, the study like wig sex itself, women, gender, and sexuality studies, Rice Krispie treats.
Okay.
So much more. So we're not obviously going to talk in depth about all of these. Right now we're just going to be trying to focus as narrowly as we can on home ec, which is really hard to do because it is quite sprawling. Nicole, I will have you read this definition that Dreilinger summarizes in her book what home economics has been throughout its entirety, to try and answer the question of, what is home economics anyway?
She says, quote, "A backdoor for women to enter science, part of a surprisingly large government-backed movement, guilt trip for women left cold by the household arts, a trapdoor, or a springboard for women of color, a sometimes ironic, sometimes nostalgic preoccupation of third-wave feminists, a conservative calling card, an aesthetic obsession for the Instagram set, a feminist battlefield, and a locus for countless anxieties about women's lives. But in its purest form, home economics was about changing the world through the household. I think it's interesting that it has sort of both conservative and liberal leanings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it sounds like it's one of those things, again, not knowing what Julia's about to tell me. It sounds like one of those things that, like, there are certain books, right, that you read and it's like, oh, this is a pro-capitalist book. And it's like, this is actually an anti-capitalist book, right? So I could imagine that home economics might be one of those things that is like, home economics is feminist. Home economics is anti-feminist. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it's both and.
It's like the picture of a rabbit and a duck, and depending on how you look at it, it's a rabbit or a duck. That's exactly what home ec is. Like, throughout its history, it's been used by several parties as like a means of progress and also a means of oppression, as we'll get into.
Right.
So let's start with the founding of home economics. Since the history is so long and winding, I kind of really want to start with the three key players of like the founding of home economics. The first being Catherine Beecher Stowe, who was the half-sister to Harriet Beecher Stowe.
Oh, yeah.
She wrote the Treatise on Domestic Economy for the Use of Young Ladies at Home in 1841, and she was an educator and social reformer. Beecher argued for the importance of domestic life and sought to apply scientific principles to child-rearing, cooking, and housekeeping, and she also advocated access to liberal education for young women. On a different note, she also was like, female suffrage is bad because women should leave the public sphere to men.
Well,
so we all contain multitudes. Catherine, at this point, like, she kind of planted the seed for what other people would build on to, like, sort of create home economics with her treatise on domestic economy. The next person who was also really important in the founding, and these names are going to probably pop up a few times as we go throughout, so I'm just going to try and describe these people now so we become a little more familiar. So the second person was Ellen Swallow Richards. Ellen was born in 1842 in New Hampshire to two well-educated parents. She was hungry for knowledge growing up, and when her small town could not provide more education, she went to college in New York at an all-female institution called Vassar and fell in love with the sciences. But, of course, as all brilliant women are, she wasn't done, and she applied to MIT and got in.
Love that.
And she earned her second bachelor's at MIT, another master's at Vassar, and became MIT's first female instructor. So making moves.
Go off, queen. Love that.
She was a really talented chemist and scientist, and she really fought for her place in the sciences at a time, 1860s, where it definitely was not common to have a woman in higher education.
No.
Especially not a professor.
Yeah.
The third person we'll be talking about today is Margaret Murray Washington. Margaret was a black woman born in Macon, Mississippi. She was born to a freed family and was educated by a white pair of Quaker siblings. This was also in around 1840. At 14, she started teaching other freed peoples. She attended Fisk College, where she was a model student and was one of the two women who graduated in her class. After college, she met and married Booker T. Washington.
Oh, him?
Oh, him! A black educated man who helped build Tuskegee College from the ground up. And Margaret taught at Tuskegee for many years.
That's so cool. And can I say I love how you've posited this as she's her own woman, and only towards the end do I find out that she's married to Booker T. Washington. She is not simply Booker T. Washington's wife.
No, Booker T. Washington is her husband.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So at this time, like the 1860s, the domestic science, hey Fanny, was picking up and being picked up at colleges. Margaret Washington herself incorporated a domestic science course at Tuskegee with the aim to raise blacks out of poverty. As she said, the homes among the colored race make progress, so will the race itself advance. So Margaret Washington's whole sort of ideology was like, if we can educate black families and black people, then they will treat us better. Like, we will have more, like, you'll be standing on equal but separate footing, whatever.
Right. Education is, like, upward mobility type stuff.
Yeah. Specifically, like, education around domestic science, which we'll get into later in case that sounds a little bit like a different study we know. Ellen Richards was also connecting her love of chemistry with all of her degrees to everyday life in the home, which is kind of why she chose chemistry as her means of study. She really liked how you could, like, apply chemistry to things like the kitchen, cleaning, cooking, and such. She formed the Sanitary Science Club and opened the New England Kitchen with business partner Mary Hinman Abel with the goal of teaching customers how to make healthy meals on a budget. I believe we've probably mentioned the New England Kitchen before in a couple of different episodes.
Probably, yeah. I love the sound of the Sanitary Science Club, by the way.
I know.
Like, not like science, but for people who don't like to make messes.
The Neat and Tidy Science Club.
Yes, yes.
Tangent, Richards had a building at the Chicago World's Fair.
Ooh, we do love our World's Fairs.
A lot of stuff happens there.
Yeah.
In 1893, another woman, Anne Dewey, who, surprise, cameo, wife of the guy who invented the Dewey Decimal System.
Okay, yeah.
She and her husband started the Lake Placid Conference with the intention of bringing together like-minded individuals, basically a think tank for domestic science. So they pulled Richards on board, and this conference was kind of where they formed the heart of the home ec movement. So the purpose of this conference was to convince universities to embrace home science as a serious study in order to create a new profession commanding adequate compensation. This new profession and this study being known as home economics as a subset of economics. So this is where they coined the term home economics.
Okay. As, like, generally the idea is to, like, professionalize sort of what women are already, I don't want to say already doing, but...
No, exactly. Yeah, to professionalize domestic labor.
Right, and professionalizing something also gives it, like, legitimacy,
Exactly.
And if we're talking about, like, upward mobility, theoretically increases your ability to get paid for these types of things.
Exactly. They wanted to legitimize the profession of homemaking, essentially, and also create scientific leaps in those fields. So, according to them, home economics would, 1, eliminate poverty.
Bold? Sure.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, okay. In a very classist and racist way, where it's like, if you just teach poor people how to save their money and cook better, they wouldn't be poor anymore. If they just stopped making avocado toast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, eliminate poverty, liberate people, women, from onerous and repetitive household labor, improve health, and provide opportunities for careers. And 3, create technological advancements in health and home. So, get rid of poor people, make homemaking easier for women, and actually maybe give them a foot in the door for being career women, and create technological advancements in health and home. So, like, discovering more about nutrition, discovering more about, like, cleaning materials, or building, like, a laundry machine, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There is, I'm thinking about, like, cleaning products and technology and things like that. There's a fair amount of science that goes into that, right? Somebody had to build your vacuum cleaner. Somebody had to figure out, like, how to make Clorox and how to put it in those little wipes that come in the can.
Yeah. So some cameos of people who frequented the Lake Placid conferences, because they were a yearly occurrence. We have Jane Addams, Fanny Farmer, our girl,
Her.
and of course, our boy, John Harvey Kellogg.
Oh, so so much has been said and written about John Harvey Kellogg, but we also have to get a foot in that door.
We
You
do.
know what I mean? Someday, we gotta talk about the cereal man. Actually,
And
he
his
wasn't
wife.
even the cereal man. Yeah, and
He
his
wasn't.
wife, and his brother, who was actually the cereal man.
However, big downside to the Lake Placid conferences, Jews and blacks were banned.
Well,
Apparently, I think his name was like Melville Dewey, was a giant anti-Semitic.
oops.
And like literally would buy land so that Jewish people could not buy land.
Cool, good.
Not
good,
cool, not great,
Yeah.
terrible actually. So even though they banned black people from attending these conferences, meaning that they knew who Margaret Washington was because she was being written up in the Journal of Home Economics, but they purposely did not invite her to these conferences. And so this is kind of the start of the very distinct separation of home ec between blacks and whites. It shows up more a bit in like the 1960s. We'll see it a little more in the next episode. But there's kind of like two parallel lines of home ec development for white women and black women.
What a missed opportunity for collaboration and like, you know, what could we have gotten? What innovations could we have gotten sooner, earlier? And I'm also like, that makes me especially mad since Margaret Washington, I mean, part of her thing was like, this is how we will like advance our community is like through this discipline, and then they just were not recognized.
Yeah, this kind of backfires on like the white home ec movement in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
But for now, they're just on different tracks.
Okay. At this point in history, we're talking like late 1800s, getting close to turn of the century. Do we have like established home economics programs at colleges and things?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the Lake Placid Conference was to get home ec as a college course or a degree in colleges. And so
Gotcha.
one of the first to adopt a home ec college course was Cornell. And actually that was like one of the biggest ones. I think it was like by 1902, there were 27 home ec college courses in colleges nationwide.
Okay. That's very respectable.
Yeah, there were also like classes. There were also being taught in like high schools at the time.
Yeah, just because you can't get a degree in it in college doesn't mean it doesn't exist or isn't like, you know, widespread.
Yeah, so by the turn of the century, it was kind of like not huge, but present.
Okay, so if I'm a young woman around this period in time, it's, I mean, relatively viable for me to at least take classes in home economics, if not get a degree in it. It is an option for me as a young woman. It's like a thing I could do. I mean, I probably am still going to get married and have kids, but like, it's there.
Are you? Are you though?
Aren't I?
Are you?
Well,
I don't know.
In this alternate timeline, who knows? Maybe I have a lifetime female friend that just lives with me forever because we are just great friends and we write each other letters. And
the audience cannot see, but I am making like
little heart eyes,
Maybe.
little eyebrows. Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about this later.
Oh, okay.
I forget if I mentioned it in this one or not. But yeah, most home ec professionals were unmarried or childless.
Haha.
Or they had lifelong female friendships.
Oh, I
wink,
see.
Wink, wink,
Well,
wink.
you know, they had to devote themselves so much to the profession, the career. Like, who has time for a child, you know, or a husband?
I mean, at this time, you really didn't have time, or there was no expectation that would allow you to have kids and a career at the same time.
That's true.
So we'll talk about that a little later. But for now, it's time for World War I. So home economics really took off with the First World War. U.S. Food Administrator Herbert Hoover had declared the Food Conservation Pledge, which was a pledge for Americans to sign to essentially like ration their own food to aid the war effort and to convince the U.S. populace to acquiesce to like voluntarily rationing as well as like normal rationing. He needed home economists to not only teach the people how to ration, but also like themselves aid in the war effort. And so the home economists went to work. You know, a bunch of them were hired by the government, and they would put out newsletters and articles explaining how to eat less wheat, less meat, and create recipes for things such as like low sugar cakes and oatmeal pudding and vegetarian dinners. At this time, actually, like a lot of research was put into meatless protein, and a lot of big leaps were made in sort of like the science of protein in vegetables. At this time, like home ec students, maybe in high school or middle school, they stopped learning how to like embroider, and they started sewing garments for nurses, soldiers, and you know more people who would need it in the battlefield. And like in the field, dietitians were hired to feed soldiers, manage hospital kitchens, and develop rations. So, you know, home economists were everywhere during the war effort. They were back home, they were on, like, the front lines. It was a good time for home ec. However, In 1918, the programs were ended abruptly, and home economists who worked their booties off both on soil and on foreign land got no recognition as military employees, even though they were like, some of them were like on the front lines. So they didn't get any pensions or any benefits.
Just like the donut dollies.
Just like the donut dollies. However, it did prove to the government, both state and local, of just how powerful and effective home economists and their sciences could be in like convincing people to do things. So in 1923, a president I have never heard of, Warren Harding, created the Bureau of Home Economics under the Department of Agriculture.
You never heard of Warren Harding?
No.
He's just a... Now I'm trying to remember, like, anything notable about him. He was there. I don't know.
He created the Bureau of Home Economics.
That's true. He did do that.
I am very good at trivia, I think, because of this podcast. And I have taken that tidbit of, like, 1923, Warren Harding, Bureau of Home Economics, and put that in my brain for a later, like, trivia question.
Yeah.
That will probably never happen, but I'm ready for it.
But if it does, yeah.
I will know. So, in the meantime, the World War I's happening, Ellen Richards is working for the government, and white home economists are everywhere doing everything. Margaret Washington was still continuing her efforts to uplift her community and educate young black women. She felt very personally affected by the events of the war, and she founded the International Council of Women of the Darker Races of the World, and inspired many black women to pursue careers in sciences that were available to them at the time, which wasn't great, but she was still, punching doors open for other young black women. She was not idle at all.
Yeah.
And so we're going to end our first half of the episode here at World War I. And maybe, Nicole, you might like to give us our food fact of the day?
Ooh, oh, maybe?
Maybe. Would you?
Would you?
Would you?
Yes, I shall deliver the food fact of the day. So, let's go.
Let's go.
So I was at a restaurant the other day. I don't remember where, it's not important. And I was thinking about chocolate lava cake. Do you know chocolate lava cake, Julia?
I know it well, inside and out.
Okay, so you have eaten one.
Yes. To the detriment of my bodily health, yes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the chocolate lava cake is extremely ubiquitous at this point, but just in case we have anybody listening, I don't know, maybe any non-Americans out there, how would you define a chocolate lava cake?
So a chocolate lava cake, and I have a little tangent to tell about my experience at the Rainforest Cafe, which is, I promise, related.
Okay.
But the chocolate lava cake is usually like a little dome, or not maybe dome, but like a little like pyramid, perhaps, round pyramid-shaped cake. And in the middle, chocolate, of course. And in the middle, there's usually like a sort of molten chocolate
Goo.
mix between like ganache and pudding. It's very rich. And the whole point of it being a lava cake is that when you cut into it, the lava chocolate, the inside spills out and like forms a little pool. And so you can eat like your cake and dunk it in the rich chocolate. Which at the Rainforest Cafe, they have a version of this called a volcano cake.
Oh, okay.
Which was just a giant chocolate lava cake with little sparklers on top.
Ooh.
And as a child, it was my favorite thing in the world. And as a child, we had not figured out that I was allergic to dairy yet.
Oh, no.
Sort of like the extremeness of it, you know? And this kind of shows how my food motivation overrides my own bodily well-being as a child, because I would go to the Rainforest Cafe, I would beg my parents for that volcano cake, I would eat it, and I would barf in the car home, or on the lawn, or like right before we got to the bathroom, every single time. No. And yet I would go back and do it again.
Wow.
So I'm sorry, Dad and Mom, if you're listening. I never learned my lesson because it was just too darn good.
I mean, that just speaks to the depth of your devotion. I think to chocolate, really.
Yeah.
But to the lava cake, generally.
Honestly, it's like I was a little dog, and you're like, don't eat the chocolate. And I'm like, but I want it. I want the chocolate. And they're like, no, it's going to kill you. And I'm like, but I want it.
What if it was for Julia?
What if it was for Julia?
So that's right. That's, I think, a pretty good definition. I think the only thing to add is that generally the chocolate lava cake is usually very small. It's usually like single serving size. I don't know why that is, but it's usually like about a cupcake, like a little bit bigger than a cupcake maybe. Like a small bundt cake, if you've ever seen, one of those. I also keep saying chocolate lava cake. It has lots of different names. Like I saw a bunch. It's not always called that. Just some off the dome here were molten lava cake, chocolate truffle cake, warm chocolate cake, chocolate Valrhona cake, and you said what, volcano cake?
Yeah, volcano cake. That might just be a Rainforest Cafe thing.
It might. Every restaurant, I'm sure, has its own slight spin on that. I'm gonna just say chocolate lava cake because in my mind, that's like if you were to show me a picture, I would say that's a chocolate lava cake. So that's what I'm gonna say. But we're talking about the same thing here. So the chocolate lava cake is very ubiquitous at this point, but it has not always been a dessert that you get after you get pizza, which is where, in my mind, I think of like the place where you get a chocolate lava cake is like, oh, you get it a dessert at like Domino's or Papa John's or whatever.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I have seen chocolate lava cakes at a lot of Italian restaurants.
Yes. So very, I keep using this word, ubiquitous, like widespread. Like you can get a chocolate lava cake so many places. It was not always so popular, right? It has come from somewhere. And in this case, it has French origins and contentious French origins at that.
I love a vague backstory.
Yeah, this one is a little more clear because it wasn't that long ago that it was invented. But we do still have like two main schools of thought, I guess I would say. So, time for me to try to pronounce some European names.
Godspeed.
So we have two chefs that sort of generally claim that they invented the chocolate lava cake. Michel Bras and Jean-Georges von Gerichten. Julia's nodding like I did better than she thought I would. So that's all I need. So Michel Bras is a renowned French chef who debuted his version of the chocolate lava cake in 1981 at his restaurant in La Guille.
I don't know. You could say La Guille and I'll be like, yeah, that's right.
So he called it a chocolate coulant, which coulant is the French word for runny. So, kind of makes sense. The chocolate's sort of runny in the middle. His goal, so apparently he was like inspired after going skiing with his kids for the day. His goal was to translate the emotion evoked by coming home to find a mug of hot chocolate after a day of skiing.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, isn't that nice? And it's also like kind of French, of like very artistic,
Yeah,
this is
evoke
really
the
like
feeling. Yeah.
Yes, the feeling. It apparently took him like 2 years to develop his version of the cake. So the way that he makes it is, so you like have cake batter, and then within the pan of cake batter, you put a frozen globe of chocolate ganache. And so as the cake bakes, the chocolate like melts and the cake gets like fully cooked, and then you've got the chocolate on the inside.
I see. Like frying ice cream.
Yeah, a little bit like that. You have something suspended in something else, and you have to time everything so that it cooks the way that you want it to and doesn't make a huge mess. So that's Michel Bras, and then Mr. von Gerichten premiered his version of the chocolate lava cake in 1987 at a restaurant called Lafayette, which is located inside the Drake Hotel in New York City. He actually created this version by accident. He was baking 500 chocolate cupcakes for a private party, which is a lot of cupcakes, and he forgot to adjust the oven temperature to account for that number of cupcakes. Oh. So I just want to give a side note here, which is that, does everybody know that baking a lot of cakes in the oven decreases the overall temperature? Because I don't know if I knew that.
I did not know that. That's good to know and explains a lot.
Yeah, so PSA, if you're the next time you have to bake 500 chocolate cupcakes for a private party, which
what is this, Cupcake Wars?
Yeah, we all do regularly. Remember to adjust your temperature accordingly. Von Gerichten did not know that he had to do this, and so as a result, the cakes were kind of underdone in the middle, and so he's like, oh man, like, his staff started freaking out of like, oh no, the cakes aren't done, this is going to be terrible, but then people really liked them. They really liked that it was like a little bit underdone and kind of oozy. And so he was like, oh, heck yeah, this works out. And so he called his version chocolate Valrhona cake, because I think that's the type of chocolate that he uses. Is that like a brand of chocolate you're familiar with?
No, but that would make sense.
This becomes even more popular when he puts it on the menu at his restaurant, which is called JoJo's, in 1991. And from there, it becomes a sensation. It becomes like super duper popular. And Von Gerichten's version is used much more often than Michel Bras's, I think, just for the sake of simplicity, right? Like, would you rather make a cake where you have to freeze chocolate ganache and put it in the middle of the batter, and then, you know, there's so many, I guess, sort of variables, or would you rather just, like, make a cake that's a little underdone in the middle?
That makes so much sense to me, because I've seen both recipes throughout, like, my life of, like, here's how you make a chocolate lava cake with the ganache, and then, like, one that I used to make growing up, you would just kind of underbake the batter, so.
Right. I do feel like I've seen both versions at restaurants as well. Like, I do feel like it's a little different. I don't think both of these would come out exactly the same. You know, I think you'd end up with different cakes, even if they achieve sort of roughly the same effect, like you were talking about, of like, you cut into it and then it oozes out chocolate.
Yummy, yummy chocolate.
In the 1990s, like I said, becomes super popular. I read in an article that it's sort of like if creme brulee was the, like, it gourmet dish of the 80s, then chocolate lava cake was the gourmet dessert dish of the 1990s, which I think is very interesting.
That makes a lot of sense.
You know, so I guess it sort of starts out in France and then ends up in New York City, and then from there spreads out across the US, usually in these, like, high-end, nicer restaurants, right? This is, like, gourmet type stuff. But as is often true with lots of parts of culture, it does eventually trickle down to the rest of us peasants, right? This is how a lot of things happen, is, like, they start out, you know, for the elites at the very upper echelons, and then eventually it's like that monologue that we get in Devil Wears Prada, right? Where she's talking about, like, oh, this is just a blue sweater that I bought off the rack, and then Miranda Priestley goes into the, like, well, actually, it started out as this collection in summer of blah, 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 and then she goes through and sort of gives you the trickle-down effect of how that sweater originated. That's what we get with the chocolate lava cake as well.
It's true for everything. Anal fistulas,
Yeah.
BBLs, chocolate lava cake, it's all the same. We all just try to copy the elite.
A good, I guess, sort of encapsulation of this, and the way that I think a lot about culture, I guess, is at Walt Disney World. It was introduced in 1997 at The Flying Fish, which is one of their, I guess, like, nicer restaurants. And then after a couple of years, it eventually trickles down to, you don't have to go to a nice restaurant. You could just get it at Epcot Center in 2002 on, like, a, you know, just a counter service. You can just walk up and be like, hey, I want a lava cake. And they're like, cool, here's your cake. And then I think the place where most people probably know it is Chili's.
Of course.
The molten chocolate cake was added to the menu in 1998, and it has not been taken off since.
Wow.
And according to an article that I read in Thrillist, the chain sells 11,500 chocolate cakes a day, which is over 4 million molten chocolate cakes a year.
Holy moly.
People love this little chocolate cake.
I mean, I did as a child, as much as it hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally and physically, spiritually, religiously.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever recovered. I was just wondering if this was, like, their most sold dessert. Like, is this their number one dessert that sells?
The article didn't mention that, but I would think so. There were a lot of, like, restaurateurs and folks that they talked to in the article where they were like, yeah, we kind of have to have a chocolate lava cake on the menu. Like, if we took it off, people would riot. There are some gourmet chefs who are like, yeah, I had it on my restaurant menu, and then everybody started making it, and so I got rid of it because, like, you know, it's not gourmet anymore.
It's mainstream now.
Yeah, it's mainstream. I did read an article in the New York Times about it that began with the quote, New Yorkers are calling it the best dessert ever. Tiramisu has had it. Creme brulee, watch out.
Cupcakes, don't even think about it.
Yeah. There was one restaurateur that they were talking to that I think described sort of the appeal of the chocolate lava cake. And he said, like, it reminds you of when you were a kid and you were, like, licking the batter, you know, from, like, after you've made a cake and you kind of, like, lick the spoon to get the chocolate batter off of it. I think that is some of the appeal. And I think also if we're thinking today about, I mean, the chocolate lava cake was popular before social media, but it is especially popular, or at least, like, it's especially Instagrammable, right? If you have that sort of reveal moment where you cut into it and the chocolate, like, oozes out.
It's like the sprinkle cakes.
Yeah, or, what are they called? Where you take, like, the plastic wrap around the cake and you, like, take it off and it, like, oozes. Is it a drip? Not a drip cake. It might be a tsunami cake. So you, like, make cake and then you have the, like, sheet of acetate plastic around it. And then you fill kind of like the middle with like a bunch of stuff, you know, lots of icing, lots of like toppings and things. And then you pull the plastic off so that it like flows down around the side like a tsunami.
Very Instagrammable. Get you lots of likes and clicks.
Yep. Yeah. That is sort of the whole point. I could really go for some chocolate.
Honestly, yeah. Same. I don't have any. Oh, I guess we have Oreos downstairs.
Do you have emergency chocolate?
No, those are the Oreos. Those are emergency chocolate, because I eat it. When it's not an emergency, I eat it.
Yeah.
But now that we have whetted our appetite for chocolate, let us now whet our appetite for science. Join me.
I'm giving you my hand.
Yeah, I'm taking it. I'm grabbing it through the screen.
Let's
get
hands.
wiggy with it.
Woo!
Woo!
We're plunging into the...
We're plunging into the pool of science.
Yay.
So now in the second half of our episode, we're going to kind of finally get into the foodstuffs. Along with what home ec was doing for white women versus women of color during this time. So, for white women, home ec was a loophole to get into the sciences. Because, like, a woman doing science, gross. A woman studying how to be a homemaker, that's fine. Even though secretly, it was the same thing.
Wink.
Because these home economists did actual science. They studied the vitamin C content of green tea. They studied how rats respond to thiamine deficiency. They studied how the body processed calcium in spinach, the best cooking methods for meat, if potatoes that were stored in cold climates made worse potato chips, and if honey is good for you. I mean, it kind of is, was their conclusion. It has other benefits, but it's not very high in vitamins.
It tastes good.
It tastes good. Women could work in business also under the guise of home ec. Marie Sellers, who is a home economist, explains in her article for the Journal of Home Economics, Nicole, if you would read.
She says, quote, food manufacturers and producers, makers of household equipment and furnishings, cooperative educational organizations representing entire industries, banks, department stores, and advertising agencies are some of those profiting by the help and judgment of the women with special home economics training.
So there were a lot of jobs, a lot of careers you could go into as a home economist. Like after you went to college and you got your degree, there were things you could do. There was like a position you could fill. There were people asking for you. So you know those like recipe books that are used to help promote and sell a product? Like you get like a recipe book for a blender or like cans of pineapple. Back in the old days, used to have recipe books, and that's how we got pineapple pizza.
I mean, we still get, like, recipes on the sides of, like, your can of Campbell's soup or whatever, you know?
Exactly. Guess who wrote those? That's right, home economists.
Whoa!
So, like, when new electric appliances came onto the scene at the turn of the century, like the early 1900s, companies needed writers and recipe developers to teach people how to use them. Because, imagine it's 1910 or whatever, and you've got a new fandangled oven that has a thermostat. And what's all this? You hear about a refrigerator.
You never seen a toaster before? Who is she? What do I do with her?
I mean, like, if someone handed me... I'm getting to the point where I am an old person.
Right.
If someone handed me, like, this is my egg scrambler, I'd be like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
What is that supposed to do? Scramble an egg? I know how to scramble an egg. Why would I buy that?
Yeah.
So these home economists had to essentially market to and convince people, women, to buy these things. So, like, ovens that now had thermostats, recipes had to be rewritten. So instead of saying, like, bake in a quick oven, they had to specify what degree, you know?
Yeah, okay.
And as refrigerators were coming on the scene, women needed to be convinced that they were, like, as safe and effective as ice boxes, and what temperature they need to be kept at, and, like, what can be kept there versus a freezer, things like that. Which makes me wonder if there's, like, I bet there is out there a refrigerator cookbook where it's, like, cooking things using your, cooking, quote unquote, using your refrigerator.
I mean, certainly, I know there's a lot of, like, you know, you have, like, your icebox pie or your icebox cookies or whatever, which, yeah, rather than putting it in the oven, you just sort of, like, assemble it and then you put it in the fridge.
Mm-hmm. That's a curiosity of mine, and I'll try and find that out.
That's so cool, though. Like, I definitely do see that as a science, right? That is, like, engineering, to be like, I have this product or technology. How do I use it? What is the most effective way to use it? How do I use it to improve what people are already doing? It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, as these appliances became more popular, a new course was added to, like, the new home economics degree, and that was the household equipment course, which, as you said, was really just electrical engineering, because it was teaching these women how to fix your new electric oven, which they then taught homemakers how to fix their electric oven.
Yeah, because especially, like, I mean, we think now, you know, what's a toaster? Like $20 at Walmart? Yeah. A lot of these appliances, like, we don't think much of them now, but they were expensive to begin with, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's not like, heck, my toaster broke. Well, I'm just going to go buy a new one. Like, you probably would need to know how to fix it.
And they kind of were in their infancy as technology, so they required a lot more maintenance.
Right.
They were not quite as efficient as they are now.
Much like the McDonald's ice cream machine. They are fickle, and they sense fear, and require a skilled handler.
Gotta get the home economists on that one. So yeah, essentially as long as the scientist was wearing an apron, everyone thought that it was above board. It's kind of like you have like a home economist and it's like a woman, and then you like put a lab coat on her and it's like,
yeah,
a science woman.
Yeah.
In the way of like Perry the Platypus.
Yeah.
Anyway, even though ironically home economists at this time were not even homemakers usually, they were not usually wives or mothers themselves, even though they marketed to and sought to educate wives and mothers. Like we mentioned earlier, at this time for women, pursuing a career usually meant that they had to be unmarried or childless. And tangent alert, this is very important for me to tell you. Did you ever have to take care of a flower baby or something similar in your home ec class?
No, and which is very interesting because, like I said, there was a babysitting unit, but it was more of like we did everything in class, right? And truly, some of this might just be because it was public school and they didn't have enough of, like, it would not have been flour. We did have some, like, kind of baby dolls. I mean, like, you know, regular human baby size to learn, like, how to change diapers or, like, how to feed them and things like that. But we didn't take them home, and there is a very good chance that is purely because we didn't have enough or the school was afraid that we would steal them.
So instead of those baby dolls that you were practicing on changing a diaper and burping or what have you, did you know back in the 1920s, the home economists' college courses used real babies to teach those things?
What? What?
Yep. Like
hello?
They literally used real babies to study and teach the best way to raise a child according to science.
That's wild. I want to know, like, who is okay with their kid being like, yeah, they can, like, you know, it's one thing to be like, yeah, I'll get my hair cut at the barber's college. It's okay if it turns out a little rough. Like, that's a very long line between that and, like, no, I'm okay with my human child that I have one of that I cannot replace or, you know, repair in most ways being taken care of by amateurs who are learning. Do you know what I mean? That's wild.
Well, I mean, these babies were orphans.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And they were very popular because, of course, you know, like, these babies would be written about in, like, the local news and things. And then people would just, like, apply to adopt these babies because they usually have, like, a tenure of 6 months to a year. And then they were adopted out.
Okay.
But we don't know anything about these science babies, because back in like the 1920s, if you were adopted, there was no continuing record of you afterwards. Because, like, your name could be changed or whatever happened. No one knows what happened to these babies. It's pretty buck wild to me. Where it's just they used real babies. They used real babies.
Yeah. It's wild to me to hear that, like, they got mildly famous from this, you know? And they were like, oh, I want that. You know, it's like, I mean, it feels like rude to say, but it reminds me of, like, when they have, you know, like, animal shelters will be like, here's our featured pet of the week. Or they, like, put animals on Instagram and it's like, oh, I want that one. And then, but I guess it works for people too?
Yep, works for people too.
Wow.
Everyone wants to adopt the science baby.
That baby's probably ahead of a lot of other babies, you know, being in the lab. They've got a good nose for it at this point.
Danielle, the author of the book I read, she talks about how, like, these babies were essentially raised at, like, a feminist commune, because it was just a bunch of women.
Yeah, that's true.
No men at all.
That's true.
So...
there are worse places, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'll touch on this in the next episode, so I'll just say it now. The reason that they stopped using real babies, and this was like a few decades later, but the reason they stopped using real babies is because one politician was like, this is unethical. These babies don't have a male figure to look up to. It's unethical to raise these children without a father figure. How could you do this? Not, you're using real babies to, like, kind of socially experiment on, but, like, how dare you raise them without a father figure?
Wow. Yeah.
Back on topic. So, like, while home ec was supposed to be freeing women from the drudgery of housework and creating careers, like, you know, the whole point was, like, let's study how to make housework more efficient so the wife and mother can do more important things with her life. And also, like, let's teach women how to do science so they can have actual careers. It was also used as a tool to keep women and girls in the home, kind of like an oppressive tool, especially girls and women of color. Home ec became a tool to indoctrinate others, I'm using heavy finger quotations, into the ideal American lifestyle, which was white and middle class. Mm-hmm. So the idea was, by teaching young POC girls, like natives or Latinas, American values and homemaking skills, they would educate them and kind of rid them of their unwanted ethnicity. You know what I mean?
Yes. They would civilize them.
Yeah, civilize them and, like, erase their culture, erase all of that. And this was incorporated into school lunches as well. I believe David touched on this a little bit. But, like, even though feeding children is inherently a good thing, it was with the intention of Americanizing ethnic families through food. So the idea was like, these immigrant children will eat American food, and then they'll go back to their homes and want American food, and kind of assimilate more.
Dinner table diplomacy, I think. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but that's definitely a term that I lifted from somewhere.
It's a great term.
Curious if you could talk a little more about how, like, home economics was a way to, like, indoctrinate or, like, continually oppress girls and women of color. Is it just the idea that, like, oh, this is domestic work, which you as a woman of color must do, and the idea of, like, it's limiting your options?
Yeah, so for women of color, this is, like, especially true for natives and Latinas, and less true for, like, the Black community, because, right, they had their own, like, home ec courses.
Right.
But it was, like, a way to rip any sort of, like, culture away from these girls. So they would be forced into home ec schools and, you know, taught how to be, like, servers, waitresses, maids, and things. It was sort of like, this is how to be in service to American whites. And it was not a means of empowerment like it was for white women at the time. It was definitely a means of, like, we are educating you only enough for our benefit.
Right.
And we are taking you away from your families, your cultures, and any sort of, like, inherent knowledge that you have. And we are replacing that with, like, how to embroider, how to sew and fix your employer's clothes, how to, like, cook American food, how to, like, nanny these babies. And so it was definitely, like, a forceful way of trying to keep these girls from their own homes and histories, and also from having any progress in society at the time, which white women will not escape forever, as we'll find out next episode. Same tactics will be used on them.
It's almost like injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere?
Yeah. What? What do you mean it doesn't just stop with the people you don't like? And so maybe like you were suspecting earlier, home ec also dipped its toe into eugenics.
Oh boy. That always...
It always...
You know, when you were talking about they had this conference and Jewish people and black people were not allowed to attend, I was like, yeah, it really does not take long. You don't have to go back in history very far at all for that to come up, or for eugenics to come up, you know?
Yeah. I think I've said this before on a different episode, but like just how everything is evolving into a crab. It's like everything will eventually touch eugenics. Yeah. Like it's all going in that direction, no matter what.
At some point you're gonna get there.
You're gonna get there. And so Ellen Richards from earlier, she coined the term euthenics in relation to the home ec movement and the eugenics movement.
Okay.
I have her definition here, Nicole, for you to read.
Okay. I'm going to emphasize this is a quote from someone who is not me.
I'm going to take this out of context and put it on all of my social media.
You're going to clip it and put it on TikTok along with the picture of me wearing a yukata and be like, she's horrible. Cancel.
Cancel.
Okay, so, quote, "The betterment of living conditions through conscious endeavor, through the purpose of securing efficient human beings, eugenics must await careful investigation. In contrast, euthenics precedes eugenics, developing better men now, and thus inevitably creating a better race of men in the future. Euthenics is the term proposed for the preliminary science on which eugenics must be based." So it's like, don't worry, it's not eugenics, it's just the thing that comes before eugenics, so it's okay.
We can't just try and make better people. We have to first learn how to make a better person, to then make a better person. So Richards is saying, like, euthenics is like, we must first better ourselves. So, you know, in order to have, like, the perfect race.
There's so many air quotes going on.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I know, I'm like, don't take this out of context. In order to, like, have the perfect race, right, we have to figure out, like, how to perfect ourselves. Okay. So we have to make sure, like, how do we have the best living conditions? How do we, like, have the best health? And then only through betterment of ourselves will we be able to, like, better our race as a whole and, like, cull all those other things, right?
Right.
So it was, like, euthenics is kind of, like, in her mind, the baseline that you build eugenics on. So you have to start with, like, balanced nutrition and healthy living and all of that to then become a perfect race in all of those things.
It's all gross.
It's all gross. So, you know, as we talked about in the beginning, home ec in itself is not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It is just itself, but depending on who is wielding it, you know, it can be used to create progress for women to break into scientific fields that were previously blocked by men. At the same time, it can be used to keep people of color and women in less powerful roles. And as we'll get into next episode, things get real bad for everyone.
Oh no.
And by everyone, I mean women in home ec. The latter sort of use of home ec, of oppression, it will become very clear after World War II. So this is where we'll stop for now. Will World War II ruin home economics forever? Do high schoolers and college students still take home ec? Will we ever learn what happened to those experimental babies?
I can't wait to find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
On Dragon Ball Z.
Thanks for lunching with us.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Our theme music is Red Onions by Louis Zong. Please check out the rest of his album Vegetable Soul in the description. If you have an episode suggestion or want to say hi, you can email us at girlslunchpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
This is going to be one of those times where you Google something and Google's like, hey, are you okay? Are you having a stroke?
Are you having a stroke?